Hey, welcome back to the Tango Banter. Before we begin, I want to share a bit of context. What you're about to hear started as a live conversation in my private Facebook group. It was recorded in the immediate aftermath of an incident between two professional dancers, something that played out in front of a room full of people and was captured on video. Within hours, it was being discussed around the world. And this was months ago, but this is still being discussed, and the ripple effects really haven't stopped. Since then, more stories have surfaced, some painful, some downright galvanizing, and what felt at first like a singular moment has now become something larger, perhaps even a reckoning. Yes, but also it's a chance to shift how we think about power, partnership, and what we accept in the name of art. And if this episode stirs something in you, I hope you'll share your own story, especially if it's one of reclaiming your own voice, your own boundaries, your place on the dance floor. I think it would be really awesome for us to hear those stories because ultimately we're building something together, I think. So let's begin. Pretty much in the nutshell, what happened is that there was some interpersonal conflict going on between the performers, and it was somewhat visible. There was a little bit of tension going on between them as the performance started, but there was nothing overt happening until the third song. So during the third song, it was starting to be obvious that there's something going on, and he's talking to her, and it's becoming more and more obvious, like it gets louder, and the people on the dance floor are starting to hear it. And what he's saying is he's criticizing her and telling her to do something different than what she's doing, and also calling her names, which I'm not going to repeat what those are. They were spoken in Spanish and then translated by multiple people that were there. So it was definitely a very negative type of situation. There was definitely conflict going on, and it continued to escalate throughout the rest of the performance. He's very forceful. It does not look like they're very much connected to the music. There's obviously something going on between them. And there are certain obvious conclusions that I've made for myself, and a lot of people have arrived at similar place with this, but there's some disagreement for people around like the gravity of what really happened, because some people might say, well, you know, everybody makes mistakes, and it wasn't really as bad as it sounds. I understand that for some people, it's very scary to admit the possibility of their idol, that they are capable of something like that. This is a repeated motif that I was hearing from people who were there, and they were like, I just could not believe what was happening. But it's a fact that he raised his voice and continued to call her names and cuss at her. It was heard by multiple people. And the fact that it progressed and amplified over time, that it wasn't something that just happened in one part of the song, like he lost his temper and then, you know, they kind of covered it up or something. It was an ongoing sort of attack that for people like myself who've been exposed to abuse on different levels, who've seen it in action, When I looked at that video, to me, it totally made sense what was happening. I've seen this before. I've felt it. I understood what he was doing. I used to be with a partner who would do the same thing. He would cuss me out on the dance floor, and I would stay, and he would lose his temper and do this kind of thing in private. But, you know, this was a very public thing, and that's the difference. That's the thing that makes this a much more important incident, because it's not just somebody saw it but didn't say anything and is just kind of talking about it in hindsight. This is like now visibly there. You cannot unsee it. And what this incident revealed to me is more about the overall dynamics in tango when it comes to the power structure in professional tango couples, in how tango actually operates, is sort of basically fostering this kind of abuse over long periods of time. This incident is not the first time. Since this video has been posted, multiple people at different times from different parts of the world have posted personal stories of witnessing it in different class situations and not knowing what to do. I myself have seen examples of this from other tango professionals, and it's not very far-fetched to believe that this is something that's been going on for a long time. Now, someone at some point was saying to me, well, you don't know, maybe he's a wonderful person on the inside. Like, this is maybe really out of character. And normally he's just a really nice person. And honestly, it just doesn't happen. Like, I've now have been around a lot of people in tango, and I've dated a lot, and I've just never seen this kind of occurrence where this sort of abusive behavior that takes place in public is somehow completely out of character, that person does not show any other signs of abusive patterns. More likely, and a more logical and believable context to imagine, that I can see happen, is that this is something that was already present on different levels in their relationship as far back as 10 years ago. And it's something that took place somewhat in public, but maybe not televised, right? Like, it might have been just as common for them to experience something like that in other performances, but we did not have this global coverage of that kind of thing. If it wasn't really televised the way it was through Facebook and through all of the social media, I don't know if we would be talking about this to the same degree. I don't know if it would cause as much emotional response from everyone. It's really difficult for us to know what to do as an audience in response to that, or as dancers for when we witness something like that. It's like you're paralyzed. You don't know whether what's really happening is really happening, because it's so hard to believe. And that's basically, I think, what the mechanism is for keeping this kind of culture alive within tango. And I think this is the right moment to really reflect on what's happening in tango in terms of these power dynamics that we see playing out on the dance floor professionally as well as socially. The solution to a problem, to overcome a certain challenge, the first thing you have to do is you have to name it. You have to actually call out what's happening. And from there, I think it's worthwhile to look at what are the, circumstances or conditions within tango culture. What are the things that help this kind of thing endure, that we still can expect that to happen, that there are professional women dancers today who are in partnerships with partners who are abusive to them. And that's happening in front of people, and people see that and they don't know what to do. Like, how do we begin to think about that culture, that it's there? How do we face that? And then what sort of decisions do we make about it? When we're talking about these power dynamics that I've been seeing between couples for many, many years, it's pretty obvious just in terms of the career ability of Tango that male leaders a lot of times become known as the virtuosic carriers of the Tango art, and the follower is just whoever is there to help them carry out their vision. So it's very much that the follower is expected to be able to be that vision that they have. And if they can't fulfill that role, then they just kind of get brushed aside. Now, I've seen so many cases of this where a male leader gets a follower and they also become lovers, right? Like, that's such a common thing. And of all the weird things about Tango, this one's probably the weirdest, because in no other profession that I can think of that I see on a daily basis would you expect that the two partners who are professionals are also intimately involved, and that's like a desired thing. Like, somehow a couple who is also in love, like they can express tango more or something. It's very strange that that's become sort of a day-to-day reality that we don't even think about critically. But I think it has a huge impact on the role of the woman in the partnership, because very frequently the partners get together, and they get together because they fall in love. Even I've done that. And then when the love part fades, it also impacts the professional connection as well. And the partnership falls apart. And very frequently, the male partner, the leader, doesn't have any issues finding another partner very quickly. And they just continue their career without interruption. Whereas the female partner, the follower, typically has a much more difficult time. So with this really uneven power dynamic and the layering of the romance and the interpersonal drama that happens, it's such a challenge to really understand what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, where do we draw the line, where do we as an audience or the organizers step in. I know that for a lot of women, myself included, this was sort of a trigger to remember some of my own experiences with this kind of behavior and how difficult it is as a woman to step away from it. Her continuing to dance and not show what she was going through is commended, and it is commendable. It's really amazing what she achieved. But I really feel like that's like, she shouldn't be expected to do that. In a way, I wish she would have walked off after the first song, or after the second song, or in the middle of the third song. Like, we shouldn't be the case that we as women, especially professional dancers, are expected to rise to this level of stamina and withstand so much pain and aggression before we show that it's not okay. For me, it was very difficult to step away. And I saw now in this incident how difficult it was for her, especially considering that it wasn't the first time, right? Like, there was a history of it. So she has been saying yes to this on certain level for many years, the way I was saying yes to my abusive relationship for years. And it was really difficult to recognize that in myself when I was in that. Other people could see it. Other people were observing this. They were witness to a lot of very uncomfortable, intense behavior from my partner, but they didn't know what to do. And I think it's that's just like the difficulty of the situation, right? You're watching someone go through something and you want to step in, but you can't do anything until the person actually recognizes that something is wrong. And the way the shift happened for me, which it took a long time, but the little pebble for me that dropped in my consciousness and sort of started to create change was this thought that you'll only allow someone else to disrespect you to the level that you disrespect yourself. So the way I understood it is like the way someone was treating me or how I was experiencing pain from a certain person in my life, like I was saying yes to that on some level because I felt like I deserved it. I felt like that's normal. It was normal to be insulted and abused. It was okay. And it was hard for me to admit to myself that was a reflection of the disrespect that I felt towards myself. That's the level to which I did not see my own worth. Now, even though I had this epiphany, it still took me another 6 months or 7 months to finally exit out of that connection. And again, it kept going back and forth between seeing the pattern, seeing the negative behavior, and then right away making excuses for it and believing that something different might happen and that the person was capable of change and that the promises they were making, they were real and that they are going to change. It's such a common story I hear from women that I think it's a wake-up call for us in many ways. It's easy to make it about the men in general, to view this as a masculine issue, which on some levels it is, but that's not the focus that I want to take, because the idea that we have to ask the men to change and the men need to realize that this is not okay and the men need to sort of become aware of their impact on the community, like that's not going to really happen. It doesn't work in general as a philosophy to wait for someone else to change. So I think the work of the change falls on our shoulders as women in the tango world, at whatever position we hold, whether we are social dancers, whether we're organizers or professional dancers. I think the work is with us collectively continuing to change the story around how we relate to each other. First of all, this is something I've been talking about for a long time, and I believe there's been some very positive changes in that way. But this story around women being competitive with each other for the attention of men, like that needs to continue to shift. And we as women should find more and more camaraderie with each other. But also, I think this is a wake-up call for us to really call what's happening out and really see it for what it is and not be okay with it. So that means that we see the red flags earlier, that we draw the line sooner, that we draw our own boundaries. And that's the thing that I keep coming back to, is that you can't ask someone else to respect and know where your boundary is. You have to draw it. You have to just know for yourself what those boundaries are, and you have to set them. And that's something that's easy for some women and not easy for others, depending on how we're coming in. And that's why the camaraderie with other women is so important, because we end up learning from each other how to navigate these difficult issues. And especially when it comes to professional tango dancers, I hope that we have collectively a much, much higher standard of what we expect in return for our work, and that we have an equal standing in the partnership, regardless of interpersonal stuff. I mean, I've talked to young professional women who told me that they partnered with someone for a performance and they weren't even paid. They just danced with them for free, and the leader ended up keeping all of the fee. And it's like, that's crazy. Why would that be the case? So I feel like now there's a chance for us to kind of push collectively towards a cultural reset where that kind of thing just cannot happen. Like that's not on limits. Like that it's not even within the realm of possibility that a professional tango dancer would be insulted publicly by her partner. Like that should not even be within the realm of possibility. And because this issue was so emotional for a lot of people, I think this is a good moment to use that emotion to commit to actionable steps for all of us, that we generate more self-respect for ourselves as women in tango, that we do the things to empower ourselves to feel more confident, really investing in the female dancers. So hiring female dancers who teach by themselves. And as students, you can also do that. You can pay professional female dancers as teachers. You can choose to study with them. Give that opportunity for professional female dancers to sort of rise in the ranks and have more of a presence and have more of a say. And, you know, somebody in the group actually during the discussion pointed out that women make up the bigger economic power in tango. And at first I didn't understand what he was talking about, but what he was pointing out is that women are the ones who are buying the stuff, right? Buying the clothes and buying the festival passes and traveling. So I don't know the numbers, but I would say that that's probably true, that women are the ones who are spending more money in tango than men. So because of that, I think it is kind of a nice realization that there are things we can do as women for ourselves, for each other, for this vision of changing the culture of tango long term, so that people who are coming up after us in tango don't actually experience this kind of thing.